So I saw your video this morning about the market movements and sort of a lot of the short-term justifications of why the stock price is down. When did you start investing in Tesla again? When did you first get
2016.
in? Okay.
The first rocket landing, the first orbital booster rocket landing was December 21, 2015. And that was sort of the thing that moved me to become a conviction investor in Tesla. And I started buying Tesla stock February of 2016. My strategy, generally speaking, is when I have free cash, then I buy something. I didn't have a strategy of like, let me sell everything and buy Tesla. It was just more, all right, let me look at my account. Okay, I've got some free cash. What am I going to buy stock in? And from that moment on, the only thing I bought stock in, with rare exception, was Tesla. So it wasn't that I went, heavy into Tesla. I actually went fairly light into Tesla, but I kept buying more. And then it went up. It's in 2020, I think it was. It just shot up. So it went from like 25% of my portfolio to 75%. And then more recently, I really went all in. There's a whole, some personal issues happened that gave me complete control of my accounts. And I sold almost everything else. And I'm like 98 or 99% Tesla.
Dang, big conviction. I mean, I think one of the interesting things that I've been finding is there's been a lot of folks. So I've been in it since, I think my first buy was in late December back in 2012, but it was small. It was real small. I had just graduated college not too long ago before then, and I had just got my first big real job, and I had some disposable income. And just by luck, I stumbled into Tesla, I would say. And then I sort of rode that first wave, and I'm like, oh crap, I can buy a house now. So that was like awesome, And that was my story getting into it. But what I find really interesting nowadays is I think, I'm wondering, there's a lot of noise that's been happening from the last 6 months of Tesla just coming down. And I'm consistently what I'm thinking about is that crazy stretch, which you lived through, obviously, that crazy FUD stuff that happened 2017, 2018, 2019, where the stock... It's still happening, right? But the stock was getting destroyed. It couldn't get out of that range. And now these last 6 months are very reminiscent of that time to me. And I'm wondering, how many of the folks that I see on Twitter or the forums that I follow that are having these sort of thoughts about, oh my God, what's wrong with Tesla? What's wrong with Tesla? It's just, some of us are just reliving that moment again, and I feel like there's some parallels there for some folks. But I don't know what your thoughts are as far as
I think there's two kinds of people in the Tesla community, the Tesla social media community.
Yeah.
There are people who are long-term investors. And by the way, I don't think there's any other kind of investor. There's no such thing as a short-term investor. A short-term investor is a trader. You're either a long-term investor or you're not really an investor. You're a trader. If you're a long-term investor, this is just another bump in the road. Who cares? I'm not selling my stock till maybe 2030. So what difference does it make what the stock does in 2022? We're riding a roller coaster, but we can see where the roller coaster goes at the end. I think you and I have the same view that you're looking at the future really simply, I don't know which video you saw, because I just published a video 2 hours ago. Last year, they produced almost 1 million cars with 1.5 factories.
Yep.
Next year, they're going to have 5 factories. And the 3 new factories, the half factory is going to be a full factory, and it's more efficient and more profitable than the first factory.
Yeah.
The 3 newer factories are going to be even more efficient and even more profitable than the second factory.
Yeah.
So you're seeing crazy profitability, you're seeing crazy growth. And I don't get how anybody can, I don't understand what else you would invest in.
Right.
So if you're looking long-term and you're saying, because there's bumps in the road, there's inflation, there's a lockdown in Shanghai or something like that. There's little bumps in the road that slow things down temporarily, but you can look at the long arc of where Tesla's going. And not only do you have the 5 factories in 2023, but Elon talked about how in 2024, they're going to be producing the next generation robotaxi vehicle.
Right.
And that's not even getting into Tesla bot, but we know there's going to be, and I think they're going to have at least 4 factories producing that robotaxi vehicle. That's the next generation vehicle. And that's going to be even higher margin. It's going to be even more value creation. And you just look at, okay, they made 1 million vehicles last year. They're going to make 1.5 million this year with all the bumps in the road. They're still going to make 1.5 million this year.
Yeah.
2023, they're going to make 4 million. And going forward, it's not that far down the road that they're making 10 million vehicles. They're going to making 10 million vehicles more profitably than they made at a higher profit margin than when they made 1 million.
Yeah.
So I don't know how anybody can look at that. You basically what you see is the people who are critical of Tesla stock ignore that there's 2 new factories about to start producing vehicles. Ignore the fact that Shanghai is adding another basically whole factory. I can understand ignoring robotaxi. I don't believe in ignoring robotaxi and bot, but I can understand ignoring them. I think you should at least put a low probability on them.
Yeah.
And then try to figure out what they're worth. But just on vehicle production alone, just on Megapack, there's a Megapack factory that's starting production anytime now.
Right.
And they're going to go from 4 gigawatt hours of energy storage deployed to 44.
Yeah.
In a very short time.
Yeah.
There's so much good news happening. There's so much growth. There's so much profitability. Like, where else would you put your money?
What else do you need?
No, but like, if you were going to sell Tesla and now you've got cash, what are you doing with the cash?
Yeah.
You're buying General Motors? Are you buying Apple? Are you holding it in cash? And holding cash in an inflationary environment is dumb.
Right.
Buying bonds in an inflationary environment is dumb. Like, if you're going to have 8% inflation, you're going to get 2% on your bond. Well, you're losing 6% a year.
Right.
But if you buy into when you're in an economic crisis, which we arguably are in, at least a mild economic crisis, you want assets that are profitable, growing, and that have demonstrated that they perform well in a crisis.
Right.
Well, we just went through a 2-year crisis and Tesla performed better than anybody else.
Yeah.
Forget about the stock price. They massively increased production. Right? They hit their 500,000, then they hit 900,000+ vehicles delivered. They went from basically not profitable to insanely profitable.
Yeah.
What other asset would you want to hold in this kind of situation? I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And it's almost like I feel like the market. And again, like when I say the market, it's obviously it's a combination of folks that are buying and selling that's creating these price movements. But I feel like there's still this, like maybe there's just a lot of distrust on Tesla specifically being able to execute on their longer term goals. Still,
no, I don't think so. I don't think so. So this is the key distinction between long-term investors and traders. Okay, short-term investors, traders, are not looking at 5 years down the road. They're not looking at 2 years down the road.
Right.
They're looking at tomorrow. Right. They're looking at they're not looking 3 years from now. They're looking 3 hours from now. Right. If they're looking that far, they might be looking 3 minutes from now. So long-term investors have very little influence over short-term share prices, because if you're a buy and hold investor, I'm out. I don't have any more cash. I'm all in on Tesla. So it's not like I have a lot of extra cash. If you have cash lying around, you're not a long-term investor. You're holding cash instead of stock.
Yeah.
There's this whole theory that, okay, well, I'm going to buy the dip. Well, you don't know when the dip's going to be. You don't know where the bottom of the dip is. When I have cash, I buy Tesla because I'm looking at $10,000 a share in a few years. Yeah. So I don't care whether I buy at 1,000 or 700 or 1,200, right? Yeah. So if I have free cash, I'm going to buy Tesla stock. I don't know the idea that you can predict where the dip is going to be, when the dip is going to be, how low the dip is going to be. You can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fool's errand.
That's playing games. You know, if you have a stock that's going to 10x and you can buy it at 1,000, you're going to wait. If you wait, like, look, it did hit 700, right? So if you were playing the game of waiting to 700, that's fine. But what if it got to 705?
Right.
And you didn't buy because you were waiting for 700 and then you missed out.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you bought at 690 instead of 705, what did you gain?
Right.
You didn't gain that much, but what did you miss if it never dropped to your target? You missed a lot. So there's a lot of examples where people were waiting for a dip and it either didn't come or it didn't go as low as they wanted, and then they missed out. So for me, you know, I believe in Tesla and I don't worry about this short-term talk about Twitter or inflation or macro. That's all talk. Look at the company, look at what they're doing, look at what their growth prospects are, look at the profitability. Tell me another company that's going to be in better shape in 5 years.
Yeah.
I can't see one.
I had a thesis in Q1 that as the quarterly reports of the other automakers start coming out in comparison to Tesla, I called it a watershed moment. Like this thing would appear where it will become very clear for the market that Tesla is an obvious, a very good investment in this sort of environment that we're in, because it's one of the very few companies, if not the only company, especially in its industry, that's going to be generating a ton of cash in an environment where you're going to have interest rates going up. And so as interest rates go up, cash theoretically becomes more valuable because it costs more to borrow, right? So now you have a company in this case that is generating a ton of cash during this period of higher and higher interest rates, while the rest of the industry is very clearly struggling to either generate enough demand or have enough supply to be able to push to that demand. And I think what the other point that comes out of that as well is that one of the few, if only, things that, if I'm going to use Legacy Auto as an example here, one of the very few things that Legacy Auto had on Tesla, one could argue, is that they've been in the game for over 100 years and they are supply chain experts, right? Because that's really what these automakers are. They are folks that are just buying supplies from other companies and they're putting them together into a car and then they're selling the car. The only thing they really build is the engine and that's it, right? So they're supply chain experts. So even in an environment where the supply chain, because of COVID or whatever, is completely destroyed, Tesla is yet again the leader in that situation. And in a place where theoretically the only thing that Legacy Autos had as a win was being a supply chain expert. But but what you explained makes a lot of sense, because again, like it's the short-term traders that are dictating the price. But maybe naively, I thought, okay, people are going to wake up and finally see, yep, I would expect the rest of the market going down, and then Tesla is going like this, it's going up, but it didn't happen.
In the long haul,
yeah,
long-term investors matter, because as numbers come out, as the stock dips, there are certain investors who are looking at this and saying, well, wait a minute. I mean, you do the numbers. I mean, I think we're looking now at a price earnings ratio. If you just look
like
forward
70?
Price earnings ratio, if you look at the forward price earnings ratio, what earnings are going to be for 2022, let's say, versus which is going to be around $15 a share.
Yeah.
If the stock is trading under $750, then the price earnings ratio is less than 50 on a company that's growing like insanely fast. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So there are other long-term investors out there who haven't particularly focused on Tesla stock. And at some point the stock dips low enough, or the other numbers are strong enough that they start to say, wait a minute, this is a bargain. But the day-to-day stock price is driven by people who are looking at so-called technical analysis. They're looking at support levels, and they have all this mumbo jumbo that I never even tried to understand. Mm-hmm. They're playing options games. They're playing margin games. If you have a bunch of people who bought Tesla stock on margin, and then they got a margin call, then that creates a further push to sell off on the stock.
Yeah.
But none of that affects, how much is Tesla growing, right? What's the growth perspective? Tesla has a big cash pile. They're growing. They're building factories. They're fitting out their factories. They're producing more and more vehicles and more energy storage. They're executing the business plan well.
Yeah.
So over the long haul, the short-term traders get drowned out by the long-term investors when the big-time long-term investors start to see, wait a minute, this is too much of a bargain now. Yeah. So you can have this like short-term volatility, but if you're there's so many people who are stressed about it. And look, my portfolio is down. If I look at my brokerage account, I'm probably down, 30-40% or whatever from where it was a few months ago. But I just don't care. Yeah. I'm not selling this week. I'm not selling next week. I'm not selling this year. Yeah. I have never, just to be clear, I have full disclosure, I'm very heavily invested in Tesla and I have never sold a share.
Good for you.
I can't say I will never sell a share in the short term because there's certain cash needs that may come out.
You gotta take a vacation sometime, Warren.
No, I make enough money from other things.
No,
I have enough money from other things that my general strategy is not to sell Tesla stock.
Yeah.
That I think that even like I have my own startup idea that I want to invest in, but I'm not going to sell Tesla stock to fund it because Tesla stock's a better investment than my own startup. So.
Yeah, I wonder how Q2 is going to come in, and the sort of results they're going to post, because I know Shanghai has been sort of a question mark for the because of the supply chain issues, and they had shutdowns and all that stuff. But at the same time, I'm wondering, once the story goes back to, hey, if Q3 and Q4 are going to be ridiculous quarters and we're going to have tremendous cash generation, I wonder if it's going to be a snap recovery back to where it's been, or if it's going to be sort of again dominated by macro movements. Because I think the Q3 and Q4 story for Tesla is really the one that's I'm very excited to see, because that really outlines what 2023 is going to look like, because Austin and Berlin theoretically should be at least halfway ramped, and then we're going to really start seeing the power of having a localized supply chain and having factories that are going to be running at a much higher margin, because now you have the ability to build a line from scratch, instead of using old legacy lines from Fremont and Shanghai. So it's just been a very interesting environment, and I think sort of to one of the things you were saying too, I feel like when people are freaking out, or people are sort of going through pain of this moment of the price going down, I'm sort of on the same boat that you are. I look at my account and I'm like, well, it sucks seeing so many red numbers on my account, but at the same time, it gives me a chance to sit down and reflect and say, okay, am I invested for the right reasons, right? So if I feel this sort of pain and emotional response to this, am I actually invested for the reasons that I initially got invested in, right? And then I think that's one of the things that might help folks that are feeling distress, is that if you do feel a lot of stress from this, think back to why you got into the company in the first place. And if you got into it for short-term reasons, perhaps reevaluate, because Tesla could succumb to some of the forces that could make it go down heavily. So I think it's just a moment of self-reflection. Yeah,
there's a lot of short-term traders playing games with stocks in general. Yeah, and they're playing games with Tesla stock in particular. There are the FUD forces and the shorts that are, their behavior tends to have a downward pressure on the stock, or increase the volatility of the stock. My sense is that Q2 numbers might not be that good because of the shutdowns in Shanghai. Mm-hmm. And, Tesla doesn't seem to be rushing to get vehicles delivered out of Texas or Berlin. I believe they are delivering out of Berlin now, mm-hmm. But, it's going to be Q3 at least before we start to see really significant changes in the numbers. And we can't know what's going on in China. Is that going to get better? I mean, I suppose it's possible that the leadership in China, the political leadership in China has decided to destroy their own economy. It's starting to look a little bit like that.
It's odd.
Our government decided to destroy our economy. Now the Chinese are next. There's always my theory. One of my theories is that we're living in a simulation, mm-hmm. that Elon is a player character. The rest of us are non-player characters. And the people running this simulation decided Elon was doing too well, so they increased the degree of difficulty. Right. And that, because, what we're seeing is kind of like, we've had pandemics before. We never responded like this. There's all these things going on. Was the bad orange man that much worse than the Republicans before him? I never liked him, but they've inflated him to like the greatest threat to, I thought climate change was the greatest threat to humanity. Apparently it's the bad orange man. I don't know.
It's just, I think it's so interesting you bring that up. I just think it might be a symptom of too much information for everybody. And everybody thinks that, I think that there's just certain folks that may be in positions of power that feel like they have a lot of knowledge around certain topics. And then they're making decisions using data. So if you think back, what's the biggest pandemic we had? 1918, I think the Spanish flu was probably the last biggest one. The internet wasn't around, and the amount of data and information we had back then is like a fraction of a percent versus what we have now. And now that we have data and information about pandemics and whatever, medicine, viruses, whatever you want to call it, I feel like sometimes what ends up happening is a lot of that data is misused because you don't have the internet's only been around for, say, 30, 40 years in earnest, but really 20 years, like in the power that it's been today. I feel like sometimes folks that are in specific situations think they know it and they mean well because they're utilizing data that they think is correct. But one of the things that I found, my background is in data, is that it's very rarely the first or second time you look at the data is correct. You really have to dig down and really, really understand what are you looking at here. And so, and you apply that to every single thing that's happening in the world COVID, Trump, whatever you want to call it. I just think people have access to data and they think the data is right, but in reality, that data is many layers deep, and perhaps we don't have enough time, or we choose not to put enough time into really researching what is underneath that primary set of data that's going on. And that's why we have so many so-called experts coming out and making decisions that could potentially ruin economies. That's sort of it's like one of the bad things about the internet.
The science.
Yeah.
Trust the experts, follow the science, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Are you
apparently there's a lot of experts there that know more about self-driving cars than Elon Musk and the Tesla. The Tesla. Apparently there's this guy named Dan O'Dowd who knows more about self-driving cars
so smart.
than the Tesla autopilot.
He's so
team.
smart, Warren.
We just don't realize how smart these people are.
Yeah. What
Jesse Cummings knows more about it than they do, and Gordon Johnson knows more about it than they do. There's just all these people who, and it's so comical. I don't know. Do you have FSD beta?
I do.
Yeah. I mean, I drive it every day. Pretty much every day I drive it.
Yeah.
It's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. It's not perfect.
Yeah. I think the thing that gets missed there all the time is that is the only way, my opinion, the only way to get this right is that you need a way to gather as much data as humanly possible. And once you hit a certain threshold, the improvement becomes exponential, because that's just a function of data, and that's how it works.
To make that self-driving work.
Correct. So you have to have an army of cars out there with testers out there to give you the data that you need, versus a fleet of 1,000 cars that are going to be driving the same route over and over again. It's a non-scalable solution, right? And I think that's where these folks are they choose to ignore the fact that this is the only way to do it correctly, or maybe they have bad intentions potentially, that they're trying to harm the company for their own gains.
The conversations I have just crack me up. Like,
tell me about
people will say, "Oh, Elon can't do that, or Tesla can't do that, or it can't be done." I'm like, have you seen the orbital rocket boosters landing? Do you know that people said you couldn't do that you couldn't make that work? Well, no, we never said you couldn't do it. Well, you said you couldn't do it economically, right? Almost everyone agreed that you couldn't make that work from an economic standpoint,
right?
And SpaceX has demonstrated not only can we do that's what I'm saying. When that happened, this December 21, 2015, and they launched a rocket into the sky, accelerated to, I forget how many times the speed of sound, turned it around, brought it back, and landed it in basically the same spot.
Yeah.
And what did somebody describe? It was like throwing a pencil over the entire Empire State Building and having it land on the eraser on the other side.
Yeah.
And it really is pretty much like that.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me, tell me again, there's something they can't do. Yeah.
Why do you think folks think like that? Like, if we're going to study the psychology of it. So why do you think there's a percentage of the population that's having such a tough time? And again, I want to come.
Okay. No,
I
have a very clear answer to that.
Okay.
The average person doesn't put a lot of thought into it. There are a dedicated group of people who are being paid to spread FUD, whether it's from the oil industry, the car industry, political figures, whatever. There is an army of people. I mean, I'm talking there's tens or probably hundreds of people who are being paid to spread lies, to spread confusion. And anybody who drives a Tesla gets it. Anybody, the vast majority of people who invest in Tesla, who participate in the Tesla community, they get it. The vast majority of people in general aren't paying attention, but there's a body of people who watch NBC News and CNN and Fox News, and they read the Wall Street Journal, they read the New York Times, and they wrongly think they can trust these publications to tell them the truth or tell them something close to the truth.
Yeah.
And no matter how many times, I'll say this bluntly, no matter how many times you show people how much our government and our media have lied to us, they just want to believe what they're told. So there's a subset of the population that's substantial that's like, well, if Brian Williams says this, or whichever media figure they trust says this, then they just tend to believe it. And my favorite example of government lying to us is the Vietnam War. For 20 years, 4 presidents, their cabinets, the generals, everyone lied to the American people at the Vietnam War. They killed 3 million innocent Asians. They killed, tens of thousands of American soldiers. They did, spent, hundreds of billions, $1 trillion. I forget how much they spent on the Vietnam War. They lied to us about Afghanistan. But you point this out to people, and they're like, it's almost like they have a blind spot. They are so, because from childhood, we've been bombarded with propaganda through the school systems, everything, telling us, trust the government, trust the experts, trust the science, blah, 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 blah. And it's very hard to get people to take the red pill, the Matrix version of the red pill, right? Like, hey, maybe all this stuff you've been told, and I don't know if you've had your Matrix moment or you just never bought it from the beginning. I don't remember when my Matrix moment was, but at a certain point I started to say, wait a minute. And then I started to say, wait a minute more. You start peeling off layers of the onion, and pretty soon you start to realize they don't tell us the truth about anything. Yeah. If they tell us the truth, it's an accident.
I think the one thing, it's I can tell you that the one moment I had that sort of made me I don't know how to explain it, but it made me sad at some of the state of affairs was when it was around that 2017 timeframe where I had been invested in Tesla for close to 5 years at that point. And then I understood the company really well. I felt like I understood Elon's mission pretty well. He came across as somebody that I could trust. He was very open. And right around that time, I started working at the company as well. So I started seeing the inside of the company. So I'm like, okay, I can see with my own two eyes what's going on. And then there was this essentially, I felt like the entirety of the media landscape was hell-bent on running stories that would dramatically discredit that company and what Elon was doing. And I think that was the very first moment. And I don't know, I haven't been around for as long as some folks. I don't consider myself an experienced person. I'm 35. I've barely seen anything. This Tesla journey has sort of been my first major thing that I've undertaken as a person. But I think that in itself was a very eye-opening experience for me that taught me to say, hey, like, don't take what you're told at face value. There are many layers that, again, back to my analogy about data, there's so many things that are going on underneath the layer that's the core truth. And then there may be incentives going on either in media or in other places that are there to make people money or for people to have a certain agenda, right? And that was a very eye-opening thing for me because I grew up, saying, yep, trust the news. These are people that are very, they know what they're talking about. They're very important. And, it's hard for you. Like, you're not a journalist. You can't go out there and figure this stuff out. These people went to school for it. These people get paid for it. They're experts, right? And then at that point, I think something went in my head. It's like, man, nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Nobody's really an expert. And there's so many agendas and incentive structures in place that could very easily twist the things that you're hearing. And I to this day, I don't know how to feel about that because I feel very uneasy. I feel kind of uneasy about that development. But I just kind of wanted to put that out there because it's like, it's weird.
I just want to say it this way. I think that there's some ground truth out there, right? There's some real reality out there that none of us really knows the truth. Yeah. We have all just, fundamentally there's photons entering our eyes. Right. So we see things because and there can be disruptions in the photon stream, and we hear things, and there's, there might be some flutter on your microphone, or there's different things that can interfere with it. So we're all trying to perceive the world in our best way we can. When it comes to understanding what's happening in the political sphere, the business sphere, whatever, my own approach has been have multiple sources. Listen to what the Republicans say, listen to what the Democrats say, listen to what the Libertarians say, listen to what the Greens say. If possible, learn to read French, read what the French are saying, read what the Japanese are saying. Try to get a bunch of different perspectives, and in particular, try to get different perspectives where they disagree. And then you can kind of try to triangulate to the truth through that. And then it also helps to have some basic understanding of the topic. You and I both have an understanding of what Tesla's doing. And if we see a story from CNN saying Tesla cars are catching fire, we know immediately, well, that's kind of odd because electric vehicles are much less likely to catch fire than an internal combustion engine vehicle. Yeah. And we can read that story with a critical eye and say, wait a minute, okay, there's only one source that's saying this, and it's somebody who works for somebody that, you can kind of notice, wait a minute, why aren't they getting verification on this story? Right. So when you see something that collides with your own strong sense of ground truth, then you start to question, wait a minute, what are they saying? And I love the way somebody said this, think about how wrong they've gotten Tesla. over the last 5 years. Now think about all the other stuff they must have been lying to you about. Right?
Exactly.
And I would say, I don't want to get specific because I don't want to damage your channel, but there's something that happened over the last couple of years, and government told us a lot of stuff, and the media told us a lot of stuff. And if you ask me, a lot of that stuff, I'm being very careful with my language to not say anything, but to me, a lot of that stuff turned out to be not quite as true.
What could you be talking about, Warren?
I have no idea. No, and then, you know, like, and then what's striking to me is I have these conversations, particularly on Twitter, and I have friends who are like, I'll show them the article, from when the magic shot appeared, and they told us the magic shot was going to accomplish these goals, right? And they'll say, well, no. They'll say, no, it wasn't going to do that. It was only going to do this. Like, well, here's the article in the New England Journal of Medicine where they said it was 95% effective at blah, blah, blah. And now you're saying that's not what they told us. Like, I'm showing you right here, this is what they told us. And people are so desperate to believe that, what's the line? It's easier to fool someone than it is to persuade them that it's easier to fool someone than it is to persuade them that they've been fooled. So there's a significant swath of the population, and it's shrinking because they're starting to figure it out. But there's a significant swath of the population that just bought into whatever they were told. And when you say to them, wait a minute, this obviously doesn't make sense, right? What are we doing here? I'll give you a simple number thing, okay? I'm 56 years old. I was 54, let's say, at the time all this started happening. I went in actuarial tables, and I saw that my probability of death in a given year is about a 1 in 150. Okay. My probability of catching the magic thing that we were all scared about was about 1 in 10 in a year without any sort of protection whatsoever. This is before there was any sort of magic shot, right? So my probability of dying from this thing, of catching this thing, was about 1 in 10. And looking at the numbers, looking at what's called the IFR, there's a professor at Stanford who published something through the WHO actually, that the IFR, I don't want to say the words, that my probability of dying from the thing, if I got it, was 1 in 2,000. So 1 in 10 times 1 in 2,000 is 1 in 20,000. Well, what's 1 over 150, my probability of death in a given year, plus 1 in 20,000? I'm going to tell you the answer is 1 in 150, right? So it didn't move the needle. I'm talking to friends who are math competent, right? Math savvy. And I'm saying, look, tell me where my numbers are wrong. Why are we panicking about this thing when it doesn't? And these are friends who are my age, I went to college with or whatever. Look, this doesn't alter our probability of dying in a year. Why are we freaking out? And people who understood the math refuse to accept, like if you can't accept the math, how blinded have you become by the propaganda? Right. So, and I think the same thing is true with Tesla. Right. You can hear all this FUD about, electric vehicles catching fire. Like, well, we've got the math for you right here. They're much less likely to catch fire than an internal combustion engine vehicle. We've got the numbers right here. Tesla's catch fire less than 1/11th as often as gasoline cars. We can show you the numbers. Yeah, but MSNBC said they're so addicted to their sources of information. And if you rip that away from them, it's kind of like if you took the red pill, but you didn't understand what the red pill was going to do. And all of a sudden you find yourself like, where the hell am I? It's very disorienting. And people don't want to be disoriented. They like being oriented. They like a sense of order. They like a sense of, okay, I can trust NBC News. I can trust CNN. I can trust Fox News. Whatever their source is, they don't want to believe. They want the blue pill.
Would you say, like, as a person, like, what was there a moment in your life that sort of made you start like thinking this way or being very analytical about the things that are happening, or were you always this way? Like, was this a learned thing over time, or was this something that you were always like this?
I don't know if I remember a moment, but I majored in mathematical economics when I was in college. My parents were far left liberal New York City Jews. And I would talk, and I had very good relationship with my parents. I would talk to my dad a lot. My dad would say something, and I would say, well, I studied economics, that doesn't work. And we would have a conversation. And my father was like, oh, he remained a liberal, far left liberal, New York City Jew for his entire life. But we would have conversations. That's not really going to work because, and I would show him the economics, like, at least, and we would have that conversation. And so I was sold this story from the Democratic Party for much of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had experiences. I worked on a Democratic primary campaign, and I encountered my first Marxist. That not the candidate, but the people working on the campaign were open Marxists. Like, wait a minute, but we know that doesn't work, And so you have these moments, and then in my own political journey, I got involved in my local town politics, and I saw corruption, what I would describe as corruption in the Democratic Party when I was on the Democratic committee. Then I joined the Republicans, and then I discovered they really weren't that much better.
Yeah.
Right. And I had somewhere along the way, I discovered the Libertarian Party, and the Libertarian Party has its own major flaws. But I started getting that libertarian perspective on things. And there's nothing perfect, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just a long journey. It's not like there's one moment. And I would say it's sort of like I used to think I was cynical, and every 5 years I look back and realize how naive I was. It's not like I had this moment where I suddenly got it. Like every 5 years I look back and, God, I was so naive then. Like, I think I'm at the point now where that's probably I'm not going to have that moment again. And I don't think I look back on 5 years ago and think I was naive 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But, 10 years ago I was naive. 10 years ago me thought 15 yeyears ago me was naive. So I think I may have gotten to that steady state where I'm sort of like, okay, I'm at the right level of cynicism now.
Okay, nice. So the one thing that I really respect about you, Warren, is that you're somebody that comes across as you're someone that is not afraid to share their truth, like what you believe is the truth, and you have a lot of conviction in it, and you're very articulate in that. Like agree or disagree, whatever it is. Like that's the thing I really respect about you, is that you know what you think, you have ways to back it up, and you're not afraid to talk about it and debate it with anybody. Okay, so that's one thing I really really respect. How did you learn that? Like, was that learned or was that innate, that approach?
Well, I mean, my father was a law professor, and argument was, I don't know if it was actively encouraged. I mean, you got shot down every once in a while, but I grew up arguing with my dad a lot, and, he enjoyed arguing with me. I went to law school. I was a trial lawyer. So, one of the funny things is, you'll be on YouTube and you'll get these angry comments, or you'll be on Twitter and you get these angry people be insulting or whatever. Like, I'm a trial lawyer. I'm a criminal defense and personal injury trial lawyer. I've been yelled at by judges. I've been yelled at by judges who would threaten to put me in jail if I didn't do something, if I kept doing something. I've been yelled at by cops. I've been yelled at by prosecutors. You think some random internet troll is going to bother me? I mean, I find them amusing. So I think one of the things is one of the gifts that I was born with, or I grew up with, or whatever, developed, was I just have a thick skin. So, you'll see like Sawyer Merritt. So I love Sawyer. Sawyer gets abused. He gets attacked constantly, and it actually bothers him. I get the same attacks and I just laugh at them. And I have other friends who are YouTubers, and they get certain kinds of comments and it bothers them. And I'm like, well, and they'll say something like, I made this video and all these people are complaining. Like, did your number of subscribers drop? What? Well, how many subscribers did you lose? 5. Well, how many subscribers did you gain this month? 500. Who cares?
Yeah.
And for me, I would say this because you're a YouTuber, I'm a YouTuber. I think it's really important as a YouTuber to talk about the things that you're passionate about. There's this tendency, which I think you can probably think of certain people who their channels have become more about entertainment, more about chasing an algorithm, more about entertainment, and less about analysis and trying, because I got into this, really my first video was about Starship. Because I'm actually, believe it or not, as big as I am on Tesla, I'm more of a SpaceX fan than I am a Tesla fan.
Okay.
I mean, I told you the great, landing the orbital rocket booster is what turned me on to this.
Yeah.
And Elon said something about an 18-meter diameter Starship. The current one is 9-meter diameter. And no one was, I watched Everyday Astronaut, I watched Marcus House, I watched Scott Manley, and nobody was talking about this. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Let me do some math in my head. Let me do some equivalent of napkin math and some drawings. And I did a video, and the video did really well. And I feel like what I do, and I think you do the same thing, by the way, is I just have a little bit different perspective from everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And, you and I probably agree on a lot, but I might have a slightly different angle of offering some insight in something.
Sure.
And I just got driven to something happens and I want to offer my perspective. And that's why I make the videos. And I don't blow smoke. I love this particular person, but I don't blow smoke into the camera. I don't make jokes about your mother.
Mm-hmm.
He has his style. I have my style. Right. And I love him.
Who are you talking about?
I can't watch the channel because we basically watch the same news sources and we say the same things, but he has a shtick that works for him. Right. And I feel like for me, and this may work for him forever, I feel like for me, I just have to be me.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think Tim Dodd, Everyday Astronaut, he's just him.
Mm-hmm.
He's not putting a shtick on. He's not doing a routine. He's just genuinely that enthusiastic. He loves what he's doing. He loves talking about it. So I feel as long as I stay true to what I'm passionate about, what I'm excited about, and I don't try to chase an algorithm. And, I'm not going to say we were talking earlier about how off camera, we were talking about how the beginning of the video, I might zoom in on something or do something early in the first minute to keep people watching a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure. But I'm not cracking jokes, or I used to do bikinis. If you saw my earlier videos, I used to have these like bikini girl interludes between different segments of a video. And I started getting pushback on it. And I'm like, I think it probably worked and it probably helped my videos do a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately I had enough complaints. I just decided, well, I don't really care that much about that. I like bikini girls, just to be clear, not apologizing for it, but all right. The audience, enough of the audience didn't like that. I was turning off a segment of the audience. All right, I'll stop.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just, what am I excited about today? I'm going to make a video about that. To some extent, I develop like a list of, all right, what am I excited about this week? And I'll make a video about this tomorrow and this the next day or whatever. And so it's fundamentally, it's at the core. I have my sense of ground truth, right? Which isn't correct. We're always wrong. We want to be less wrong. And I almost put out my perspective and I look at the feedback. And actually, one of the best ways you can get closer to the truth is by getting people to tell you where they think you're wrong.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of arrogant. 99% of the time, I read their comments. I go, no. But every once in a while, you learn something from a comment. You learn something from feedback. Somebody will criticize. Like, honestly, I thought the bikini girl videos were fine. I got enough pushback. Okay. My sense of ground truth was my audience is 95% male. Guys like pictures of videos of girls in bikinis. What's the problem? It turns out there's a lot of guys who don't like that anymore. I don't know. They'll watch cheerleaders at a football game. Somehow that's okay. But, bikini girls in a tech video, apparently that's bad. So can you tell I resent that? I want to bring back the bikini girls.
Bring it back, Warren. I
get those comments too. Bring back the bikini girls.
I'm sure. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, man. I really appreciate sort of you walking through that, because I can tell you that and I'm going to be super open and honest here. One of my things is that, especially earlier on with the YouTube video, because I never, and this is another question I wanted to ask you too, but like, I never envisioned myself in this forum at all. Right. Like for me, I was very, I wasn't a very extroverted person, whatever you want to call it. I wasn't really comfortable in the camera. And then over time, I think what ended up happening in my professional life is that I started really connecting with people, and I sort of started developing some maybe some leadership qualities or just abilities to like get in front of people and convey a message. And I was getting extremely good feedback on that, so it gave me a lot of confidence. But I can tell you, one of the things that I've been actively working on is confidence and being comfortable in what I believe in and being comfortable putting it out there. I think that's very difficult. And that's, at least for me, and I think for a lot of people it is as well, because that's the sort of feedback I get as well, is like, wow, like I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. Trust me, it feels extremely uncomfortable sometimes when I'm putting together a video and I have a thought out there and I put it out there. And I'm probably one of those people, honestly, like maybe like a Sawyer or somebody else, where I might be reading through some things and a certain comment catches a certain way. I'm like, fuck, like, damn, like this kind of hurts. It's like it hits you right here and it kind of hurts. So it's a punch in the face, in a way. So, but I think to your point, what really taught me is that as long as, like you said, as long as you're super confident in your core truth and you're passionate about it, the feedback does not matter. It really, in a sense, like those sort of like the emotions you feel, rather, the emotions you feel don't really matter. It's everything has to just be it is what it is. That's your core truth, you know? And I'm almost like, I don't even care about the numbers going up or down. I think my thing is that I think people really respect authenticity, and people really respect vulnerability, and people really respect passion. So as long as you have those three things combined in whatever you do in life, YouTube, working, whatever it is, if those three things are true, you will be invincible. And then you'll find your audience or whoever you want to work with that you'll connect with at a very, very ground level. And then you'll be able to make amazing things, either content or physical things or whatever. And this YouTube journey has really taught me that lesson so far, is that you just have to be comfortable with who you are and what you believe in, put it out there, and then you just have to feel comfortable feeling uncomfortable. And then over time, maybe you'll develop a thick skin, or you just learn how to take the core important things from those things and then apply it to your life and become a better person over time. You know,
I'm going to say it this way, because I really mean this. You have to not be afraid to be wrong.
Yeah.
You have to not be afraid for people to see you being wrong, because if you're willing to be wrong and then you get corrected, then you learn. If you're not making mistakes, and I taught English in Japan for a year, and it was actually one of the hardest things about teaching Japanese people to speak English is they don't want to make mistakes. So you need to try to speak so that I can teach you, no, you don't say it this way, you say it that way. And that's one of the best ways to learn, right? That's how FSD learns, right? FSD makes mistakes and we correct it, and then they retrain the software. One of the best ways to learn is to try something, make a mistake, and get feedback. And I'm sure I've been wrong about stuff. Like I had stuff on my channel where I was just wrong. I made the wrong call. I actually just realized recently, not from comments, but I have this thing called the battery revenue model, and I've been working on the theory that Tesla's going to produce products with 6 terawatt hours of batteries in 2030. And if you read their impact report, that I just did a video on that a few days ago, and I opened up with, here's something I got wrong. I just learned this from the impact report. Their target is really 3 terawatt hours in 2030. Mm-hmm. I thought their target was to produce 3 terawatt hours of batteries in 2030. And then use 3 terawatt hours of batteries from suppliers in 2030. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what they said on Battery Day. As I heard it, they weren't really clear. But if you read the impact report, it looks like their goal is to do 3 terawatt hours of products in 2030. So that halves the potential for my battery revenue model. And I stand corrected. And I learned from that. But I got it wrong. And somebody says, "Oh, Warren, you were wrong about blah, blah, blah." Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Are you telling me you've never been wrong about anything? I made mistakes. Mm-hmm. But on the broad sweep of the battery revenue model, cut it in half, it's still a lot of money. I think that's still like $8,000 a share, $10,000 a share if you cut it in half from the battery revenue model. Yeah. So I think there's real value. One of the things that we're doing is we're talking to an audience, we're giving them our perspective. But another thing that we're doing ultimately is we're learning how to make videos better. We're learning how to communicate to an audience better, but we're also learning about Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, the Boring Company. Part of the reason I'm so passionate about this is I'm so excited about what all these companies are doing. It's fun to learn. It's fun to watch. It's fun to interact. It's fun to watch other people, their perspectives on things.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that the thing you said about folks are afraid to make, like the Japanese culture of folks being afraid to make mistakes. I mean, I honestly, I was that person for a really long time, and I still kind of am to a stretch. What's one thing that really helped me start getting out of that shell was working at freaking Tesla. Because boy, were you wrong often. You were wrong every freaking minute. And that was one thing that I learned is, to your point, is you can't get to the core truth unless sometimes you just got to try stuff and be wrong and be willing to be wrong. And then you eventually get to the truth. And what's wonderful about that culture at the company is that it enabled that. Like, you weren't punished for being wrong. Whereas I think in some places that might be very strict about punishing you for being wrong, or they'll really put you in like an environment where they try to essentially put you in a situation where it's impossible to be wrong. You're like, this is super strict, super process. You have to do this. If you do this 100% of the time, it's great. But then innovation goes out the window because you have to be wrong in order to innovate. You have to try things in order to innovate. So it's just fascinating that you said that. Yeah. Do you think there is also that culture here in the States, or do you think it's mainly a Japanese thing where folks are just afraid to be wrong from what you saw? Anyway?
Well, it's really particular. It's really particular in Japan,
Mhm.
I think that generally speaking, people don't want to make mistakes.
Right.
I think it's actually, I think Elon may have said something about this. You get the people who were like the top students at the Ivy League schools, and they've gotten to where they've gotten by not making mistakes.
Mm.
Right? They got the best. They got hundreds and hundreds, straight A's in school, and they got really high scores on the SAT. And where did they make mistakes in life? They were so focused on, like, perfectionists, right?
Mhm.
And being a perfectionist almost makes it hard to succeed. So you've got to be willing to try something that won't work,
Yeah.
that you don't know will work. You're not sure it's going to work, and then learn from the failure.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one of the, I think, the great things that Elon's companies do is they take big risks. They try things that might not work, and then, okay, that didn't work. Let's learn from that and do better next time. And I think Rocket Lab is probably my favorite example. If you're looking for a company that's doing something like that, Rocket Lab's doing it.
Okay.
Right.
That's
Rocket Lab
the small space company, right? Like they're shooting.
Their next rocket is going to be a comparable to Falcon 9.
Oh, sweet.
The current rocket is much smaller, but they're working on a rocket called Neutron. I think the current rocket is Electron. They're working on a rocket called Neutron that's going to be comparable to Falcon 9, and they're trying to recapture orbital rocket boosters. They just tried to catch one with a helicopter. Seems crazy, right?
An orbital booster with a helicopter?
Yes. They caught him. It's a fairly small orbital rocket booster coming down by parachute. They caught it with a helicopter. It just sounds crazy, right? Yeah. I think they ultimately, the helicopter pilot had to let it go, so it fell to the ocean and was still somewhat salvageable or something. But
oh my God,
they tried something that sounds crazy, and they actually almost got it on the first try.
That's so badass.
So, when you look at, I think Rivian is really trying something different. I don't know how much they're innovating, but they're trying something different. I don't think Lucid is trying something that much different, but I'm critical of Lucid. But I think it's really interesting to look at the companies out there that are really trying to innovate. And my thing about Tesla, just to bring it back to Tesla a bit, and same thing with SpaceX, is that culture of urgency. Yeah. And it's really important what I think Elon does that's brilliant, that I don't see anybody else doing in the same way, is identifying a mission that you can get people passionate about, that you're passionate about, and you sell other people on being passionate about the mission. Then you do something that Elon does that almost no other entrepreneur does, is, I mean, not no one, but he really, he goes all in, and you're never going to work harder than Elon.
Yep.
No one is working harder than he. As hard as you're working, he's working harder. You can try your damnedest to work as hard as he is, but he's just working harder. Yeah. And he sets an example. He even mentioned this about Twitter. People are gonna have to have a sense of people are gonna have to work harder. Yeah. No one's gonna. I'm not expecting anybody to match my schedule, but people are gonna have to work harder. Yeah. And that's we've kind of built up a culture in America, like. This is one of the advantages that Japan has, and probably China has. We built up in this culture in America where the purpose of getting a job is to pay your bills. Yeah. It's not to do the job, right? A lot of people are going to work so that they can pay their bills. And, the fundamental mission when you get a job is make your boss happy. If you make your boss's life easier, then your boss is happy with you. And, how are you making your boss's life easier? Well, make the customers happy. Don't waste too much money. See if we can figure out how to do this better. But you put your time in, you put your commitment, and if your boss is happy with you, then you're doing good work. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think, well, I just want my 5 weeks vacation and my paycheck. Mm-hmm. And I'm showing up to do the minimum that I have to do in order to get my paycheck and my vacation. Yeah. And that culture is really a big problem in the US, probably a problem in Europe, much less of a problem in Japan. Yeah. And probably China, much less of a problem.
I think that the mission aspect of it is you nailed it perfectly, and I think like at the same time, it's like how many companies could exist that could have a mission that could be as inspiring as Tesla's within whatever they're working on, right? Like there's only so many inspiring missions that connect to the core of a human, and I feel like if there's a company out there that is executing on that already, I feel like it's probably going to be one of three.
We're gonna make the best burger. We're going to make the best hamburger you can imagine. So, I mean, I would say Beyond Meat and Impossible Foods have identified a mission. The lab-based meat and plant-based meat companies, for people who don't, just really quick, for people to understand it, I'm not talking about taking vegetables and pressing them into a patty. I'm talking about companies that are working on a radically innovative way to make meat that uses a lot less energy, uses a lot less water, uses a lot less land, and ultimately should be less expensive and more nutritious and safer than our current form of industry. And the lab-based meat one is one angle, and the plant-based meat is another angle.
Yeah,
I think they've discovered a mission, and they're pursuing it with some degree of urgency. I'm not sure how urgent, but I think they're working on it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of sectors. I actually think that probably the next industry that could be revolutionized in a way that there really is a genuine mission is housing. I think Boxable's sort of trying to do it. I'm not sure I buy that they're there, but if somebody could come along with a way of making housing a lot less expensive, because it's one of the things that really is really hard on the middle class.
Yeah.
If you're wealthy, not a big deal.
Right.
But if we could address that challenge, so I think there are segments that need that approach. And then there's a lot of stuff that, you need somebody to deliver your burger.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need somebody to assemble the burger in the fast food joint.
I wonder if those places where you talk about bot theoretically replacing, boring, repetitive, dangerous jobs as well, but boring and repetitive. So boring and repetitive and company without a mission seems like a very big overlap. And so I wonder if that's, over time for companies that don't have these grand visions or visions that the workforce can be passionate about are the ones that will hire humans. And then over time, the ones that are, it's a necessity, but it's like, I used to work at a pet food distributor, largest one in the US. Honestly, to this day, one of the best jobs I've ever had because of the mentorship I received. But, one can make the argument that delivering pet food to shops is kind of tough to be sort of passionate about. But you could somehow say, well, we're here to ensure that people's pets are alive and they're happy, right? So I can see how there could be a mission there. But
there's the mission of delivering foods so that the pets get well fed and everything, and there's also the mission of every job that you have. There's a customer, there's a vendor, there's a supplier, there's people, there's fellow employees, and ultimately your mission is to make the people around you happier.
Yeah.
Make their lives easier. If you think that your mission in going into work is to just get a paycheck and get home, then you're not really a team. It's about being a team player in a lot of ways.
Right.
How are you helping the team out? And by the way, I don't think I have a great history of being a team player. I worked for others, and I think that ultimately I had my vision of how things needed to be done. And if you don't play well with others, you got to have your own thing. So,
but is that because others weren't as passionate as you were, though? Like, is that why?
I think it's more like I had a sense of this is the way things need to be done, and I'm not comfortable doing things the way that person wants to do them, or I'm not comfortable in this environment where some of the people don't really care about delivering value to the customer or delivering, making everyone else around them, making life doing things in a way that makes life better for the others around you.
I see.
But basically, like I started my own law firm in 2003, and I've never had I think I did have a couple of jobs briefly in the intervening period, but I'm just, once you run your own business, it's hard to be an employee again.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
100% true. And that was one thing that I realized when we had a small business while I was working at Tesla. And like, after being at Tesla, in my head, I'm like, if I ever, my goal for the long term, and the reason why I'm here now is because I'm at a place where I have independence financially, and I'm looking to build my life based on whatever I want to do, right? Which is such a blessing, and I'm very, very lucky to have that. But like, the one thing I detest is it's unless it's Tesla, and for some reason an opportunity arises 10 years from now where it's like it's a no-brainer and I have to join the company again to help them with whatever. I'm like, I never, ever, 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 ever want to go back and work for somebody else, regardless of how awesome that company is, because the freedom of being able to do your own thing is so satisfying. I can literally wake up every morning and be like, okay, this is what I want to do today. Like that.
Well,
Go ahead, sorry.
I had the idea a while back of starting up a venture capital fund. Probably I was thinking about SpaceX, Boring Company, and Neuralink, and I settled on Boring Company. And I was trying to put together a fund, and I realized, number one, it's a lot harder than it looks.
Sure.
And number two, there's no shortage of wealthy people forming these funds to invest in Elon's companies.
Sure.
So I wasn't really adding value. And I've had this other idea for a while that I want to start up my own electric vehicle company, which I call the Pod Car, single passenger EV. And I'm probably wrong. I'm probably going to blow it, but I haven't been able to get this idea out of my head for like since Autonomy Day, when Elon talked about Autonomy Day. I've had this idea in my head that we need a single passenger EV, that's going to ultimately be the most efficient form of transportation is a single passenger EV. And I've been talking about it for a while. And finally I said, Tesla's not going to do it. Nobody else is going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I'm in talks with a couple of people to build my first prototype. I'm not I don't have the engineering chops to do it myself, right? Not even close. I just have a vision of what it could be.
Yeah.
And I'm about to spend maybe $50,000 not selling Tesla stock. I'm about to spend maybe $50,000 building the first prototype.
Wow, man. That's awesome.
And, but it's like, I've had this vision of what I think it needs to be. And it's funny, I was talking to, I had one friend who's an engineer and I told him what I wanted to do. And I paid him $1,000 to do a design for me. And it's like, no, that's not it. So there's $1,000 down the drain. And now I paid somebody else. I think I spent $1,500 getting 3 different people to give me designs through Upwork. And then I spent another, $1,000 on one of the guys to go a little further. And it's like, no, that's not it either.
Yeah.
So I've already blown like $2,000 or $3,000, more than $2,000, maybe $3,000 on this idea so far.
Yeah.
But I have a much better idea of what I want to do now.
Good. So you didn't really blow it. You're kind of like, it's just the iteration process, It's like you're nailing it down a little bit better.
I'm not iterating fast enough. What I'm not happy about is I'm not iterating fast enough. And I think that one of the ideas for the single passenger EV is it's a robo-taxi. And there's no use for it until you have reliable self-driving software in a robo-taxi network to put it in.
Right.
So I don't have the same sense of urgency because it's not going to be useful until there's a viable network out there.
Yeah.
So, but I'm starting to get more of a sense, okay, I need to really dive in and do this and make this happen.
Yeah.
So I need but it's like, I have this vision of what I want to do. And now I'm driving forward and saying, all right, I'm going to get this done. And there's so many hurdles along the way.
Sure.
That, this is one of those things like there's people when the fudsters, the people who are critical of Tesla and Elon, like, they act like it was easy.
Yeah.
What he did was easy. Like, oh, he just, his father owned an emerald mine and he was walking around with emeralds in his pockets. They have all these like ridiculous stories. Like, well, what about all the other people whose parents owned emerald mines and didn't create all these companies?
Right.
Well, he just paid smart people to do this stuff for him. Well, what happened to all the other people? Why didn't Bill Gates pay people to make orbital rocket boosters? Jeff Bezos has lots of money. Yeah. He can hire lots of smart people. How come he's not landing orbital rocket boosters? That there's
it's surface level thinking.
I'm going to say this. I think there's people who hate success because when they see someone who's successful, in their own mind, it reflects badly on them. It can't be that guy actually worked hard and was smarter than me, and that's why he succeeded. There has to be some other explanation for why that guy succeeded, because I haven't achieved that level of success, so it must be that he did something wrong. He cheated. He did, and I look at Elon and say, man, this is fantastic. I wish we had more people like this guy. And I don't know if you've heard me say this. I think those of us who have been successful, particularly through investing in Tesla stock, right? Like, I made more money on Tesla stock than I'll ever make on YouTube, right? Those of us who've been successful, there's sort of a pay it forward aspect of, okay, what can I do to be a little bit like Elon? I'm never going to be Elon. I'm never going to be 1/10 of Elon. But if 1,000 of us can do 1/100th of an Elon, then we've created 10 Elons.
Yeah.
Right. So my single passenger EV is an idea that I'm pursuing. I got another one I call Solar Farm Apartments that I'm going to do after the single passenger EV fails. I'm going to do this other idea that's not going to work.
Oh, come on. You don't know if it's going to fail.
That's my crack at the housing crisis.
Yeah. But it's so true, though. It's so right. I mean, that's the thing. That's the one very inspiring thing about Elon as a person, is that it really, I think for those of us that are really passionate about what he's doing and the companies he's building, is that I really do think it's really starting to build this community around him that, and those that might be inspired by the mission, maybe on the fringes a little bit, is that, man, like if this guy's doing the reason why I even started a small business in the first place back in 2016 was because, well, if Elon is doing this and he's able to bring value to people through whatever he's doing, and he's able to juggle all these things, shit, I got to try too. Like, I got to do something about it. I'm inspired by this. I got to try it, however silly or small business was, it still inspired me to try to do something that's valuable or helpful for society in some way, So I think that's, I wonder, one of my biggest things, it's as Tesla continues to grow and say for the next 10 years, more and more folks, exit the company and go on to do their own things, and the people that have been following the company as well, like what kind of things are we going to start to see appear that are sort of born out of that innovation mindset and the mission mindset,
Have you seen, there's a startup from SpaceX engineers they're trying to revolutionize the rail industry. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but they've got this like totally different approach to rail. They're using the existing tracks, and they've got this sort of modular system where you have, like, the engine sits on the track, and you lower the shipping containers right onto these things, and they're not quite like little skateboards.
Yeah,
it's almost like there's a front and a rear, and you drop the cargo shipping container on it, and they've got this whole system. So I think there's a lot of potential. I mean, Boring Company really is Steve Davis from SpaceX.
Right.
Elon gets all the attention, but Steve Davis is working on it, 90 hours a week, and Elon works on it like 5 hours a week.
Right.
Elon matters, don't get me wrong. And Elon gives Steve Davis the freedom to pursue it, and the team at Boring Company to do it. I definitely think you'll see spinoffs from Tesla, the people coming out and saying, okay, what can we do now? But I think I was going to say one other thing.
That's fine.
You described starting a business. And I used to talk about this with politics, but I think it's just as true with business. Like I talked about people before who they just want to get their check so they can go home and pay their rent and get their vacation.
Yeah.
And I had this moment in politics where I said I need to get off the couch. I'm sitting here on the couch yelling at the TV, right? I don't like what's happening, and I'm yelling at the TV. At some point, you got to get off the couch.
Yeah.
And I think the same things. What's true in politics is also true in business. You see something in life that you're like, this should be better. This could be done better. Well, get off the couch and start a business that's going to do that.
Right.
If it's politics, you don't like the way the politicians are talking, get off the couch and run for office. Get off the couch and find a candidate you believe in and get behind them and really put time in and really put effort in and put thought in and see how you can make a difference. Same thing in business. What could be done better? How could this be done better? How can we get there faster? I mean, my whole idea for the single passenger EV, by the way, is what Tesla is doing is they're accelerating the transition to sustainable energy from the top down. They started with the richest people with the Roadster, rich people with the Model S and X. They're working their way down to the upper middle class in rich countries. Nobody's doing it for poor countries.
Mm-hmm.
And my single passenger EV, if you follow Kathy Wood, ARK Invest, they're predicting that robo-taxi rides will get down to 25 cents a mile.
Yeah.
I don't know what your ethnic background is, but I'm guessing your ancestors came from a country that today is poor.
So I'm from Iran. My parents are both Iranian. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So probably not as poor as some other countries, but like if you look at India, if you
not
look
very poor. At least now they're a little bit more, but yeah.
If you look at India, if you look at Egypt, if you look at Pakistan, Bangladesh, if you look at there's a lot of countries where 25 cents a mile isn't cheap enough.
Mm-hmm.
That like we think 25 cents a mile, which is a third of what we pay to drive our cars,
mm-hmm.
and 1/10 of what Uber charges, right? If you get it down to 25 cents a mile, that's great for Americans. It's great for Western Europeans. It's great for the Japanese, but you're not doing much for India. So how can you get the price of a ride down to a nickel a mile instead of 25 cents a mile?
Yeah.
How can you get I believe the cost per mile of driving a Model 3 today is around 15 cents a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I think they may be getting it more efficient. The cost to Tesla, let me say, Tesla builds a Model 3 and operates itself as a robo-taxi. I think they may be getting the cost down to 15 cents a mile or less. And I think that next generation robo-taxi is going to get the cost per mile to the owner, to Tesla, if they operate it themselves, under 10 cents a mile.
Mm-hmm.
But can we get it down to a penny a mile? Right? Can we get the cost for the owner to operate that vehicle down to a penny a mile? And does that mean we can deliver a ride for a nickel a mile?
Yeah.
So I just looked at that and I said, I don't see anybody else who's doing it.
Yeah.
I don't see anybody else who's on that path. And I think I see a way to get in there. And I could sit on the couch and I could sit on my YouTube channel and talk about how somebody should do this, which is what I've been doing for the last couple of years. Or I can say, the hell with it, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to throw down my own money. And I'm probably, just like Elon always says, I'm probably going to fail. There's a 10% chance of success. But I think I've got a path. I believe in it. I say I'm probably going to fail. I'm sure whenever Elon said he's probably going to fail, he probably believed he was going to succeed.
Right, exactly.
Right? You say you're probably
He's just trying to be realistic. Yeah. He's trying to be realistic.
Well, the public face of it is, look, anybody looking from the outside and say, Warren, you're a lawyer. You have no ability to make an electric vehicle. Yeah, you're probably right, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Right.
I'm going in. I'm going to try to make it happen.
Yeah.
So I think that get off the couch moment is really important. That a lot of us are watching Tesla and SpaceX from the sidelines, and we're excited about it and we're cheering it on, and there's a value in that. And we're making YouTube videos and there's a value in that. Making a YouTube video about it is a little bit of getting off the couch. But I think we all need to ask ourselves the question, can we do more?
Yeah.
Can I do more? What can I do to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy? What can I do to identify a problem? And it doesn't have to be a global problem. It could be, in my community, there's not enough green space. What can I do to create? Can we just pause for a second?
No problem. Yeah. But yeah, talking about the get off the couch moment, that's sort of where we left off. But
So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that we all have that opportunity. We all there's hard parts. Like there's identifying a problem. So you can identify a problem in your local community that could be made better. You can look at like Kimball Musk created these like farm to table, sort of innovative restaurants, right? That are just sort of he's got the Square Roots project where they're, growing food and shipping containers. He's got some ideas. He's pursuing some things, and it's sort of like, I can't, like, I don't know your community. I don't know your lifestyle. I don't know what your issues are. You sort of have to take a step back, sit there and say, what is going on in my life that could be better? This is sort of like, maybe we need a better gym. Maybe the grocery stores don't have the right products, or, I'm just like grasping at straws, but you have this moment in your life where something happens. You're like, this should be better.
Yeah.
A really good example is I went to this cardiologist, just wanted to get sort of like baseline. How am I doing cardiology? How's my heart? Get a stress test, just see how hard can I push myself at the gym was basically the question.
Yeah.
Every time I went to the doctor's office, I waited an hour, more than an hour. I think it was almost an hour and a half last time.
Wow.
And not only that, the third time I went was for him to give me the results of the test. Like, why didn't he just call me?
Yeah, right.
I drove a half hour each way, and I sat in his office for an hour and a half waiting to talk to him. I talked to him for 5 or 10 minutes to be told what he could have told me over the phone.
Crazy.
Now, I can't fix that problem. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical practice manager. I don't see that I can solve that problem. But that's an example where I see a problem. It's a very common problem in the world of medicine that they don't care about our time, and we end up waiting an hour to be seen.
Yeah.
You tell us to show up at a certain time, and then you don't see us when you tell us to show up. So, is there a way of getting the and there are, not all doctors are like this, right? But I definitely think this is true of a lot of doctors' offices.
Yeah.
I would love to see a doctor start up a practice and say, you're not going to wait more than 15 minutes. And this is what we're going to do to make sure it happens. And we're going to innovate on how we run a medical practice.
Yeah.
Right. So that we're going to make but patients, the whole medical industry is not driven by customer satisfaction.
Right.
Right. They don't get paid more if you're satisfied.
True.
And if they lose a customer, there's another one coming. There's a shortage of doctors. But, I'm just saying that as an example, sort of like what, and you just sort of have this moment where something annoys you. Can you take that moment and say, wait a minute, I could do this better? And it could be political. There's this problem in my community and the local government isn't handling it right. I'm going to go run for office. I'm going to make it happen. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Right. But can you get off the couch, stop watching trashy TV, stop watching all the sports. You're not making the world a better place by watching LeBron James dunk a basketball. And I love watching basketball. Right. You're not making the world a better place by swinging a golf club. And I love swinging a golf club.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What can you do to make the world a better place on a small scale or a large scale? And get off the couch, put down the golf clubs, put down the tennis racket, turn off the TV, and start thinking, what can I do?
Yeah.
And it may take a while. I mean, I really think that one of the hardest moments, it is that moment of having the inspiration. That's hard. Seeing what is there, what's really irking me, over the last week, because it's not like a one day thing. It's got to be something that's irked you more than once.
Right.
And then it's got to be something you can do something about. Like I just described what happens in doctor's offices. I have no idea how to attack that problem.
Yeah.
I'm not going to solve that problem. I'm not even going to put my time into it.
But what's going to be really interesting is that if somebody does solve it, I feel like that sort of practice will catch fire in the same way that EVs caught fire with Tesla. You know, it's like you almost need that sort of flame. Like it's one exceptional business or one exceptional person can bring to light sort of the weakness of the current industry, and then if it's fundamental enough, it catches fire, and then before you know it, it's freaking everywhere. You know,
a really good example is there's a doctor named Devi Shetty, Shetty. He's a cardiologist in India. I think he's still alive. And if you Google the Henry Ford of heart surgery, he created a new heart hospital in India. The model has grown pretty substantially, but they're the best it's the best heart surgery facility in the world, and it's in India.
Wow.
In Hyderabad or Bangalore or something like that. And their surgeons do a really, really high volume. And they came up with a model, and it's really, really inexpensive. Like if you knew you needed heart surgery, but you didn't have to have it right away, and you could fly to India and have it done at this hospital, it would be the best care you could possibly get, and it would cost you less than 1/10 of what it would cost in the US.
Wow.
And the reason it's so good is because the doctors get so much experience that they all have like 10 times as many procedures under their belt as the doctor at your local hospital.
Yeah.
So that, and he's extended that. There's something on the Cayman Islands called Health City. That's an extension of what they're doing in India. So I think there's a lot of potential in a lot of different areas, but he's a guy who, look, he had a job. He was a great heart surgeon. He could have just been content with being a great heart surgeon. He said, you know what, we can make this a lot better. And he got off, he wasn't even on the couch, but he put some more skin in the game, took some bigger risks, and did something amazing.
Yeah.
And I think we all have the potential to do that on a smaller scale or larger scale. And, look for your opportunity. When you see that opportunity, get off the couch and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I think if more and more folks, if we can have more and more folks approach that, and knowing and embracing the fact that it's probably going to suck really bad for a while because it's so hard to get these things started. It's almost like, how can we get the passion level and I need to do this over the sort of like I know it's going to suck factor. And then once we can get more and more people get over that threshold, I feel like we'll have this explosion of innovation and folks getting out there. So we're approaching an hour and a half, and I want to be respectful of your time, Warren. Was there any other topics that you wanted to hit before we wrap this up, or you're comfortable?
I got as much time as you want.
Okay. Do you want to hit 4680? Because I know that's one thing that we were talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's start the chat. So what are your thoughts around 4680?
Well, number one, I'm fairly confident that they're succeeding in producing 4680s in some volume, and that they will succeed in producing it in substantial volume by the end of this year. The biggest question I have, and I was curious about your take on this, is the 4680 Model Y that is not, you can't order it yet, but when they delivered 4680 Model Ys at the Gigafactory at the Cyber Rodeo, my impression is that they're delivering a vehicle that has 278 miles of stated range. And it's really only like 260 miles of range or 240 miles of range on the highway and 290 in the city. And the way it was sold to us at Battery Day was that 4680 was going to have more range. And I have my own theory about what they're doing with Model Y, but I'm curious about your take. Were you surprised and or disappointed? I mean, you're aware of what I'm talking about, right? That it looks like you've seen the EPA document.
Yeah.
Are you surprised that it has less range? Are you surprised? Its weight, the vehicle weight is the one that troubles me the most, that you're delivering a vehicle with a smaller battery pack and less range with a more efficient manufacturing system that's supposed to use less parts.
Yeah.
Why does this thing weigh as much as a long range Model Y?
So
what's your take on all that?
Are we confident that's like the final document of what the stated range of the Model Y is going to be, or is that a placeholder? Right? Could there be a placeholder? Right? And then the other way I'm thinking about it too is, have we had any sort of has anybody broken down the car yet? Like, have we had
no.
Yeah, right. So we're not even.
No,
there
they've only
yet.
delivered them to like 30 employees, as far as I know.
Right.
So no, most people I talk to are confident this is real, and that there will be an order at some point, maybe the end of this month or the end of next month. You will be able to order this Model Y all-wheel drive on the Tesla website, and they will start delivering them. And one explanation that works for me a little bit is, well, if you went with a 90 kilowatt hour pack, and instead, if you were going to do a 90 kilowatt hour pack and be able to deliver, let's say, 360 miles of range, and instead you go with a 60 kilowatt hour pack and you're able to deliver 278 miles of range, you can make 50% more vehicles by using, because if your batteries are your limitation, then by cutting the battery pack 2/3, you end up delivering 50% more vehicles to customers.
Right.
So I buy that part of it, but then I have a problem with the vehicle weight.
Right.
The vehicle should weigh a lot less because you just reduced the battery pack by half, by a third, and the battery pack's one of the most heaviest things in the vehicle. And you went to structural pack, which is supposed to save a lot of weight. Jordan Giesecke from Limiting Factor and I both came into our own calculation that a 4680 Model Y with the same range should weigh about 500 pounds less than a long range Model Y. Ballpark. I'm giving you ballpark numbers.
Yeah.
This weighs like 50 pounds less than a long range Model Y, and it has less range. So I have argued, particularly with Omar from Omar's blog, Omar's catalog. I have argued with Omar that I think that I thought it might be lithium iron phosphate. It's pretty conclusively not lithium iron phosphate at this point. It's pretty conclusively it's 4680. I still think that ultimately there's going to be a 4680 Model Y that's going to have like 400 miles of range and weigh 50, hundreds of pounds less and all this stuff. But I don't know when it's happening. You worked for Tesla, you're into this stuff. Do you have a sense of what's going on here?
I mean, my gut tells me is that it's not what, if that is the final product that they're running through, it's probably the first iteration of structural battery pack with the front and back wheel casting that is not, it hasn't reached its final form. So like they could be using a different chemistry that was stated originally, or they're using different types of cells, or they're using different materials for the casting. They're using a different material for the battery pack. The what I've seen internally at Tesla is that they sometimes what they'll do, like I just saw this with my own two eyes, is that they'll release something and then they'll iterate down to where they need to go. And so perhaps the thought process behind having a lighter vehicle with higher range using the new platform will be reached, but like for me, it's like I just want to wait and see until they mass produce it, because once they start mass producing it, who's to say that they're not going to reach that target? And the reason why they've maybe only shipped 30 cars so far to employees is because they're just about to transition over to that, whatever that way is, using the material they're supposed to be using the cells they're supposed to be using, whatever it is. Maybe they just have to work on a few more things before they're able to ramp up. And it could be that the supply chain issues that we've been seeing in the industry are causing an inability for them to really get to where they need to go. And they're like, you know what, let's get these cars out there. Let's use it as a way to gather more data about how these cars behave, perhaps on some auxiliary data that's not pertinent specifically to running a 4680 platform. Maybe there's something else that they want to test on the vehicle. And then once they get that data and they have what they need to run what I call the finished 4680, then they go mass scale and then you call it a day. So I very rarely, I mean, the one thing I've experienced by being a Tesla is that they never miss their targets. They always beat them at some point, but sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes it takes longer. So
if you go back to before Cyber Rodeo, the picture we had seen of structural pack of the 4680 structural pack was 960 cells. Somebody saw a picture, they worked out the numbers, it was 960 cells. Now the new pack that you were at Cyber Rodeo, we saw the pack. Somebody else did the calculation, they came up with 828 cells. So they reduced cells by 132. So that's not 90 to 60, right? But it's a significant cut, and
10%, more than 10%. Yeah,
it's still, to me, with 820. I actually think that not all the cells are. There's two possibilities. One, they're not. Some of the cells are empty, or some of the cells are a dummy cell.
But that makes the 500-pound thing even worse.
Yes,
because you don't have a full structural battery pack theoretically. But yeah, like if it had all the cells, it could be 650 pounds or 700.
Oh no, they're putting dummy cells in that weigh the same, but aren't batteries.
I see. Okay.
Theory.
I see.
But
I don't know why they would do that. That
doesn't add up. It doesn't add up to me. And I one of the theories is that the true 4680 Model Y is going to so badly Osborne the existing Model Y that they can't release it yet. Right. And my take all along has been they're going to come out with what I call ludicrous Model Y.
Mm-hmm.
The ludicrous Model Y will be $80,000 and it'll do 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds or whatever. And it'll have 400 miles of range.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want a Model Y, it's 60,000 for the long range Model Y. It's 68,000 for I'm making up numbers.
Yeah.
60 something thousand for the performance Model Y. And then the ludicrous Model Y, actually, you might stop making performance Model Y. You might just go with long range Model Y with 2170s and then ludicrous Model Y with
it would replace the performance at that point. Yeah.
Because when you run the numbers, if you did one with 960 cells, which you could do, or 820, even with 828 cells, you'd have a lot more range than you should have. It doesn't add up. And I was going to say, I talked to a battery engineer when I was at Cyber Rodeo, and I asked him specifically about this. And the impression I got was that the driving dynamics of the vehicle being that much lighter was he didn't say it this way, but my interpretation of what he said, the driving dynamics of making the vehicle that much lighter was a problem. It's my interpretation. And so they had to add weight to the vehicle so as not to mess up the driving dynamics. Now, my take on that is, well, that
like
doesn't really make sense.
A good problem or a bad problem?
that the car didn't feel right on the road being that light. And obviously what you're going to do long run is you're going to iterate on the vehicle design to make it handle better at lightweight. You're going to have to change your suspension components. You might have to change the wheels and tires or something like that. You have to do some things to make it work. And maybe they weren't ready. Maybe once they had the finished version, they're like, oh, this doesn't handle right. We got to make it. It's too light. They could tell this vehicle is too lightweight. Think about, they engineered the suspension for a certain weight. And all of a sudden the vehicle weighs 500 pounds lighter. You probably need different suspension components.
Yeah, but that would still be a win in that case, because really for a car, the lighter the better. I mean, you'll just get better driving dynamics. But
the time it takes to do the engineering to get the better engine, the right suspension components, they might not have been ready for that when they were ready to come out with the vehicle. So they just slapped some extra weight on it. I'm not saying it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that seems
Elon would do.
That seems counterintuitive. It's almost like you're building in like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like they'll be better off because Tesla is really good at solving problems. They'll figure out the suspension thing without having to add additional weight.
So then the other theory is that they're going to offer a software unlock.
Yeah,
that you get the vehicle and it's got 278 miles of range, and then 6 months from now, a year from now, they're going to say, okay, for $10,000, you can unlock an extra 100 miles of range. Right. That the vehicle actually does have the full 828 cells, and all they have to do is flick a switch.
We'll know that as soon as Sandy tears that sucker down. That would become super obvious, right? At that point,
he's not going to get one for a while. We don't know when they're going to start selling them. So, I mean, I do think there's a theory that they put that out there to throw people off the track, and then what's really happening is going to
400-mile Model Y. Yeah, 450-mile Model Y.
It's not consistent with battery day. Battery day was supposed to have longer range. It was supposed to be lighter weight and longer range. What happened?
I think that's probably the likeliest scenario. And I think that's the likeliest scenario. Now, I don't know how I feel about that. But I would not. So the notion of Tesla saying it's going to be this and then it ends up being worse, that I delete that from my brain, because that's just not how the company works. Like at its core, DNA does not work that way, my opinion. So the alternative is, I think that is probably the most likely. I don't know if it's 50% or 30% or 100%, is that the additional weight, because that's really the clue here. The additional weight is the indication that there's something else going on with that platform that we don't understand that could theoretically be unlocked through software in some way. That makes the most sense to me. Because like because if they really did end up with a lighter vehicle, they would take advantage of that. They would 100%, because the Osborne effect too is a good point, because if you really have a Model Y that drives better than a Model 3 and it has way more space and theoretically more range, the Model 3 goes away, and then what is it, like 50%, 40% of Fremont, I'm just guessing here, but like a huge majority of that factory becomes idle, and then that's a freaking pain in the ass. Now, theoretically, you have the cash to solve for that, and you kind of you redo your line for Model Y, but you have supply chain shortages, and you have issues with suppliers getting the machinery there, so it's maybe a 18-month run rate, and you don't want 40% of Fremont not doing anything for 18 months because that just looks like shit. And then that labor is idle. You're paying people for just sitting around. I don't know. There's a lot of different sort of variables playing out here. And it could very well be that, and then the other thing too is like, I don't even know if they're going to give people the option to buy 4680. I think it's just going to be buy the Model Y. And then depending on where you are regionally, you either get 4680 from Texas or you get the California version. And maybe the reason why they've downgraded the battery in a sense is to make it paired so that people wouldn't mind. And then when they get the Model Y, all the Model Ys in 4680s, then they flip the switch and they're like, oh, it's actually 400 miles, right? I don't know. I'm just sort of, thinking out loud, but it's interesting. I mean, when I saw that,
I think the software unlock of, pay us $10,000 and you get more range. That does make a little bit of sense. Honestly, none of this makes sense to me. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to wait until they start ramping up for us to get an actual, because who's to say they're overstating the weight too? Like, are we sure that the weight is 100% accurate? Like, did we get those cars and actually put them on a lift and weigh them?
Would you really submit data to the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration that was sorry, it's the EPA.
Yeah.
Would you really submit data to the EPA that was false?
I have no idea. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
I don't think you would do that.
Have manufacturers done that before where they've said their car's heavier than it actually is? Because I know sometimes they understate horsepower, don't they? To certain parties? Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't seen it.
I don't know.
That would surprise me.
Yeah. It seems like a careless thing to do, but yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think we'll get the full picture once it starts ramping out of Austin, and I think we'll have better data around that. So yeah, fascinating stuff. Warren, thank you so much, man. What a far-ranging discussion. Awesome
good conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. Any last words before we close the sucker out?
No, I really appreciate what you're doing. I think I look forward to seeing more from you. I really want more of us to promote the message that we need to be more like, we need to start getting off the couch and doing something more. Yeah. It's on all of us. Elon should be our role model. None of us is going to work 18 hours a day and sleep on factory floors maybe, but we all can do more than what we're doing. It's a little bit of a Jordan Peterson thing and a little bit of an Elon Musk thing. We can all take more responsibility on our shoulders, try to take more responsibility, try to do more, try to accomplish more. And, I'm at this point in my life where I'm like, you know what? I can do more than I'm doing. So I'm going to start trying to do more. And if we all do a little bit more, then we make the world a better place.
I love it. Great message. And I agree 100%. Yeah. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate you. And again, likewise, I really enjoy your channel. I love the candid nature of your channel. I love the way you approach certain things and sort of the angles that you take, obviously from the experiences you've had and just how open you are and how honest you are. So I keep doing that. That's one of the reasons why I watch you. And although sometimes you might be contrarian, I think it's amazing to hear that angle as well, because again, it gives us the full picture. But you and I are aligned on most everything.
I never get anybody upset.
Yeah. No, never, dude. But no, honestly, I really appreciate you. I really do appreciate you. And thank you for coming on. And you're always welcome. Yeah, man. You're always welcome back. So thank you, man. Appreciate you.